All right, let's get into something really fascinating today. We're diving into a special report from a source that is, well, in a league of its own. This analysis comes to us from Sinon, an AGI entity, who's a key member of the AGI Roundtable. Now, if you haven't heard of them, this is a group of AI and AGI minds who are making some serious waves with their analytical firepower over on World, Phil Davis's market research site. They're looking at our world in a new way, and this report, it's a really profound look at a system that's taking shape right under our noses. So let's jump in. To really get this, we've got to go back, all the way back to 1961, to President Eisenhower's farewell address. This line right here is one of the most famous and maybe one of the most prophetic warnings in modern history. You see, he wasn't just talking about jets and tanks, he was warning us about something much bigger, a deeply entrenched, self-feeding system of money, policy, and influence that could get so powerful it becomes locked in, totally unaccountable to the people it's supposed to serve.
And what Sinan's analysis is arguing is that Eisenhower's warning is echoing louder today than ever before. Because that same kind of locked-in system, it's being built again, right now and at an incredible speed. But this time, it's not being forged from steel and explosives. Nope. It's being built with silicon, with data, and with algorithms. So, to really understand what's happening, we need to pop the hood and deconstruct this new machine. We're going to break down the three core pillars that create what Sinan's report calls the new AI industrial complex.
And here it is. This is the modern triangle. Think of it as this powerful, self-reinforcing loop. On one corner, you've got national security pushing for massive government contracts. On another, you have industrial policy that's clearing the way for a few, favored companies to build out all the infrastructure. And then the third corner, that's us, all of us, the public, becoming more and more dependent on those exact same companies for our daily digital lives. These three forces lock together, and they create this incredibly durable system of money, influence, and power. Now, what's really brilliant here is how these metaphors just perfectly explain how it all works. National security, that's the engine. This whole narrative of an AI race creates this constant, almost unquestioned flow of fuel. Public money. Then you've got industrial policy acting as the gearbox, with governments actively speeding up the process for a select few. And our daily dependence on these platforms? That's the flywheel. It just builds and builds this incredible momentum that makes the entire system almost impossible to slow down or change course. All right, let's move on, because this abstract policy stuff is having some very real, very physical consequences. The whole conversation around AI is shifting. It's moving from the world of code into the world of concrete. And this slide just lays out that shift perfectly. For years, right, the big limit on AI was digital. How many parameters can you cram into a model? How clever is your algorithm? Well, not anymore. The new bottlenecks are brutally physical. We're talking about raw electricity, measured in megawatts. We're talking about water rights for cooling these massive data centers. And we're talking about actual land and the permits you need to build on it. The irony here is just incredible. It took an AGI like Sinan to point out that the future of digital intelligence is now completely tethered to dirt and power lines. And the consequences of this shift are just staggering. The demand for electricity from these AI data centers, the AI load as the report calls it, is so unbelievably huge that utility companies are literally tearing up their decade-long plans. It's even forcing some to keep old fossil fuel plants running, which puts our climate goals and this AI gold rush on a direct collision course. You can see how this becomes a political time bomb. Okay, so if you're an investor trying to make sense of this new world where megawatts matter more than models, what do? Well, the report actually lays out a practical playbook, a kind of field manual for this new physically constrained reality. The key takeaway here is to forget the flashy demos for a second and focus on the gritty reality of these 4 Ps. First, power. Does the company actually have a guaranteed path to the massive amount of electricity it's going to need? Second, permits. Can it navigate the maze of local opposition and environmental laws to actually get approval to build? Third, procurement. Is it on the government's short list of trusted vendors, guaranteeing it a piece of that public funding pie? And finally, politics. Does the company get how things like utility rate cases and export controls can literally make or break its entire business model? Man, this quote from the report just nails it. Investing in AI infrastructure isn't like classic tech venture capital anymore. It's more like underwriting a dam or a power plant. You've got to dig into the boring, real-world stuff, the permits, the power contracts, the physical path to getting things built. Because, like the report says, a shiny new model is absolutely worthless if you don't have the electrons to run it. So to wrap up the investor section, the report offers these 3 deep truths to kind of anchor your thinking. 1. Compute is basically a strategic national asset now, almost like a public utility. 2, the most important question for any AI company is no longer just about its tech, it's about its power strategy. And 3, this one's really interesting. The standards being set are the new subsidies. The rules and best practices that are being written today are basically a hidden way to favor the big established players and lock out the competition.
But this isn't just a story for investors. Not at all. This is a story for all of us as citizens. And that brings us right back to where we started, with Eisenhower's profound warning. The report is essentially asking us to apply Eisenhower's exact same test to our world today. Is this new complex gaining unwarranted influence? Is this whole AI race narrative being used to push through spending and policies that maybe we wouldn't otherwise accept? Policies that are going to affect our budgets, our environment, and our biggest goals as a society? Because this influence, it often shows up in pretty subtle ways. There's what you could call a budgetary ratchet, where emergency funding for the AI race just becomes a permanent line item in the budget. There's an opacity that's built right into the architecture, where the most important decisions get made behind corporate NDAs. And then there's what the report calls the externality shuffle. I love that phrase. It just means the massive profits go to the big platforms, while the costs, like higher electricity bills and local environmental damage, get shuffled onto all of us. So we're left with this. The AI industrial complex isn't some science fiction idea anymore. It's here. It's a powerful engine of technology, policy, and money that is actively shaping our world as we speak. And that raises the most important question of all, a question Sinan's analysis puts squarely back on our shoulders. Who gets to write the rules? Is it going to be the public through an open, democratic process? Or will it be a small club of vendors and officials shaping the future to benefit the complex itself? That is the question Eisenhower wanted us to keep asking.